We haven't heard from
Tom
Tom.
does too, so. No, I have not.
Okay, all right, Eric, I guess,
I'll be back.
T first.
He's it.
Okay.
Both of these items are things he wanted to talk about.
I just would like to take a little bit of time. I've had a couple of concerns that have been brought to me by members of this board, both one in open session, talking about residency of the police officers, and then secondly, looking at some type of bonus or incentive for longevity of the employees, concern about the turnover in the department, which obviously is a concern. But I really was just going to kind of field some questions on the residency thing. I've researched it somewhat. You know, there's a big back and forth between agencies and fraternal orders of police as far as the legality of making residency a requirement. It's been into litigation, and it has essentially been upheld as far as being legal, requiring the residency. The court, on the opinion that I read, was more in favor of more of a radius than actual border. You have to live within the city limits. Was not upheld, but you know, a reasonable response of this amount of time was upheld. You know, that they considered that to be reasonable. My understanding is some of the concern for the residency here is, and I may be off base, and I apologize if I am, but the patrol cars that are parked out here through the week, and also maybe some concerns about the tax paying or the tax money maybe not going back into the community. So I can certainly address some of those if anybody has any specific questions. You know, one of the concerns that I researched. First of all, I have mixed emotions about the residency thing. I would love for my officers to live closer or live in town. You know, it certainly has a lot of benefits. There are certainly some cons to that also. You know, just as far as my personal experience with officers that have lived here or been from here, eventually kind of adopting some complacency on who they want to enforce laws on because they're familiar with people. They didn't want to stop anybody that was a friend or, you know, write any DWIs or work any DWI enforcement because they knew so many people here. You know, so that was obviously a supervisory issue that I had to deal with. But the opposite could be said also of somebody that doesn't live from here or live here, that doesn't really have any real skin in the game, if you will, as far as how they treat people. You know, there again, that's going to be a supervisory issue. If I have specific incidents where officers aren't treating people well, then that's certainly something that I will deal with. My understanding in the next so many months, I have several officers that are hoping to move to town. One of the options that has been presented or a suggestion that was thrown out by a member of this board was maybe some type of an incentive pay for officers that do live in town. You know, certainly that's going to be a board decision more so than a decision that I would be able to implement. But you know, then we talked about the initial information that I was given. You know, suggested maybe a mandatory residency that would be pre-existing, so any employees that are already here would not be grandfathered and be expected to move to town. I certainly would not be in favor of that. You know, I would be in favor if the board was willing to look at it, some type of incentive for new hires if they were willing to move to town. And it's gonna kind of meld into my second issue that I asked for the meeting tonight was the step pay and also starting pay for the officers. You know, I think that it's certainly difficult if you're looking at a tax-based stance to buy a house with what we start our officers out at. You know, you would at best look at renting a property here, and you know, as it is now, the officers that work here are here 12 hours a day. They're buying food here, they're buying their gas here. You know, so there is some of the tax benefit that's coming back here. But I certainly see the city standpoint too, as far as you know, if there is a feeling of spending the money back here. Then of course you get into the issue of how many people that live here shop here anyways. But I just wanted to field some questions. If you guys had any questions or wanted to address any specific concerns, I would be happy to do that. And I kind of, I guess, want to see the board's feeling as far as what they want to mandate or recommend, or just kind of what your feelings are.
Yes, Chief, on the residency, I don't know, it's always nice to see that there is a police officer living in the neighborhood. The visibility of the car, or them interacting with their neighbors or in the community, I think is very important. I don't know exactly what you can do about that, because, you just can't say it. Everybody's got to live in the town, in the city.
Right.
Or in the county or something like that. But, say like an officer lives in Farmington or something like that. There's no interaction between them and the community. They just come here, they do their job and they leave. Their friends and everybody else is over in another area. And I think there has to be an interaction between the public and the police.
I agree, and I think that the officers
Get that bond, get that friendship going and everything.
I agree
know
with
it's hard to arrest your friend, but, if that would happen or something like that. But,
I agree with that, and I think, and I don't mean to speak for Alderman Prince, but I think that my officers have done a pretty good job about making contacts and making sociable contacts while they're working. Doing the community policing, meeting people, getting some vested relationships from a work standpoint. They don't necessarily need to go out and drink and socialize with them after work, but they are friendly, they know people, they know the people in town, and I think they treat people well. I certainly see your point, and again, I would love if I had more officers that live in town. But I think it's a double-edged sword. The issue or the concerns that I've had and personal experiences that I've heard about. St. Louis implemented a residency policy for a while. You had to live in the city for so many years, and 20 people would go together and rent an apartment and park their car there, and then never be there. So they had an address in town. We've had rumors of people on this board that didn't live in town. How do you prove residency? How do you prove that somebody's living where they say they're living? If they have an address there and they're getting mail there, or if they go there when they get off work. I think that it's an issue that may bring more resentment and reduction of morale than any real positive effects for the citizens. Again, the officers that move to town, that take it upon themselves, and like I said, I've got at least 2 that are talking about getting an apartment here, and a potential new hire, which I will talk about in a second, that is looking to maybe relocate. So, I think that it certainly does, again, give the officers some skin in the game and a feeling for the community. But the officers that don't live here, I think, do a phenomenal job also. I think that they know people, they make contacts, they have a good footholds when it comes to working a case, or if you're stopping somebody, and that's what police work is just getting a network. And I think the guys that have worked here for the few years that I've been here, that don't live here, have done a good job with that. I think that they know the community, and I think that not living here hasn't necessarily hampered that any.
Eric, how many towns around us, does anybody have a residency?
Farmington has a so long a response. I think it may be the school district or a half an hour response should you get called in, something to that effect. And again, that's been somewhat upheld by the court system as being constitutional. The sheriff's department implemented a residency recently that they actually got away from because it cut down on their applicant pool so significantly that they.
And that's the process I was going to say.
Yeah, and that.
It's extra recruiting.
And one thing I don't like about residency rules is I don't want somebody living here and working here that doesn't necessarily want to be here. if we force them to live here against, I don't want to say against their will, but I mean, if we force them to live here, they're not going to be happy living here when they're just here for work. And I think that's not a good thing, but in the same respect, you know, I hear, and bringing up about the cars parked out there, you know, we're in our second year now without, our second budget year without replacing police cars. And I don't want to get into the same boat that we were in years ago. I remember when I was a kid, Bill Fritch was responding to a call, his car broke down, and I was like 16, 17 years old. I actually had to drive him to City Hall to pick up a car, you know, because our cars were in terrible shape. We were on a good program there. Every year we replaced 1 or 2 cars, and, you know, now we're not replacing them because we have so many sitting here that aren't being used. Well, they're sitting here because we don't have, they're not in the driveways, you know. So that was kind of a concern for me, that, you know, it gives the impression that we have a good fleet of cars, which, you know, we do, but we need to keep up with them. And I'm also not real happy of St. Genevieve Police Department being a training ground for them to move on to go somewhere else. I mean, I don't want to say we're wasting money, but, you know, because we are getting some value out of the officers, the new, you know, fresh ideas and stuff like that. But
the long-term experience is going to other agencies after
exactly,
we
and
train them.
the step plan that he's talking about, I know that, you know, we don't have it in all our other departments, but not all our other departments are risking as much as our police department does to do their job. I mean, case in point, the Ferguson deal. That officer, whether right or wrong, his career is over in a matter of
His life
seconds.
is,
Yeah.
his life is ruined, yeah.
So they're putting a lot on the line, more so than, let me just pick a water worker or a street worker or whatever. I mean, they got a lot more, and they're basically making almost the same wage. And
Less in most cases.
yeah, and, you know, we gotta do
Right now it's
something
11,
for the police
22 an hour.
department to, number one, retain, you know, the days of having our Dick Lees, our Bill Fritches, you know, people that are invested in community here, you know, if we can keep them here long enough, they're gonna get tired of driving back and forth to home. They'll eventually probably, maybe not all of them, but maybe someone will say, you know what, I'm tired of driving over there in bad weather, I'm just gonna move. You
And
know?
there's always other factors in it, you know, the officers that are hired in that have a spouse that works over there, the kids are going to school over there, you know, wherever they live, you know, it's hard to uproot that and change that always. And I guess to expand on one of the things that you said, and I guess to segue into the other portion of this, I have a very strong probability that 2 of my officers are going to be leaving. One has given us notice, going to Lake St. Louis, and one is in the final process at Perryville, be leaving to go to Perryville. That officer is actually our dare officer and has been here for several years, and, you know, will be a hard hit when he leaves, and he is going to leave.
He lives down there, doesn't
He lives in Perryville. The starting salary is considerably higher than ours, but their insurance is considerably higher also. And I would like to look at, and I have a proposal. I can give the step plan proposal that I have as far as where our current, I was just looking at this. I've done this so many times, I think I printed out the wrong chart.
Got it. You got time, you want to look at the right one?
Okay.
Well, I have another one, I marked these incorrectly, but the step plan itself will not change between the two. I plugged in my proposed starting salary in this one, for your consideration, and this would be a bump, assuming all of my calculations were correct, and like I said, I've been through this for the last several days, but my understanding and my calculations, if we bumped the new hires and the couple people that are still at the new hire rate that we have, to $12.85 an hour, that's about what we hired the last street department employee at. It would not be a raise in my current approved budget. Now, obviously, the downside to a STEP program is it's, as long as the funding is available, it's committing future boards or future budgets to increasing that. For the most part, I don't know that will be significant, but years down the road, it will be. You know, you're looking at several cents an hour, maybe on a few employees, and you know, that's certainly not ideal. However, you know, I went about this the wrong way initially and began to implement this with what I thought was Martin's approval, but he brought up a good point after the fact that it really needs to be board approval before I can commit to this, with it being a committal of or commitment from the board. But it would certainly be explained to the employees that it's as the budget allows. I mean, if there's years that the budget doesn't allow for the STEP, and we could suspend that for the year, you know, that would be.
That's always the problem with these programs. The 3 or 4 local governments where I've experienced, they look like they make a lot of sense, and it's all very logical, and it's achieving the goal, and then you don't have money.
Yeah.
And so the year you don't do it, it just throws it out of whack. And so, certainly not suggesting it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that it's only a good idea if this board and subsequent boards follow through.
And
Because then it becomes a bad idea.
And again, I don't want to, I never want to do anything that will raise question or cause concern, but, you know, typically the budgets that we submit are factored at the salary. I mean, you're not going to necessarily see the STEP every budget year as much as a dollar amount increase. You know, I mean, the STEP would be factored on our end, but
The other side of this is, and I think I agree that of all of our employees, the police officers are the most at risk, and that maybe should be reflected in starting pay and you know, and this review that into that. But if you're rewarding longevity, how does it differ from one department to another?
that's a valid point. I know I was talking to one of the other agency heads in the county who runs another public safety entity that actually does it's a one-time longevity check. That's a separate line item once a year that's based on after you've been there 3 years. It's like $10 a month. That's paid out at one time towards the end of their budget year. You know, which you know could certainly be entertained citywide. And again, I just wanted to get some feedback from the board and see. I can try to catch you up if.
No. I apologize that I'm running a little late, and I don't know what you've already talked about, but hiring police officers for our town is a competitive environment, right? Mm-hmm. And to get and retain good officers, we've got to figure out how to pay them as much as we can, or we'll lose them to another municipality where they can make a little more money.
You know, and I certainly don't want to sell short the insurance that we have here. That is our big saving grace for this. But even comparing some of the, you know, we looked at when we did this comparison before comparable sized police departments in the state. I don't know that that's necessarily as accurate as the agencies that we have surrounding us now that we are actually losing people to.
We're not competing with Kansas City.
Exactly. We're not competing with peculiar Missouri, you know.
Well, go ahead, finish your.
Well, so I just did a real quick comparison of some of the local agencies, and even with their insurance, you know, they're still about where my proposal would be what they're making after they're paying for their family insurance.
But a lot of the guys we're getting and that have the higher turnover rates are the single guys that the insurance doesn't matter anyway.
Right. And you know, we've had employees before. I've got an employee that his spouse works for an ambulance district, and they have phenomenal health insurance, and he declined the health insurance here for a while, even for himself. and, I mean, maybe we could look at compensating him some way there, but it would be a different line item. It would be a reduction in our insurance, obviously. But he didn't really see any benefit for refusing the insurance. It was still his hourly rate, and for a while, I think he came back on, and then I think it went back off. But that's a good point, and the new hires that we will likely be looking at, I was telling them I have 2 officers that are likely leaving. One has given his resignation, and one is in the final process at Ferryville. So we'll be looking at hiring 2 recent, or in the very near future, probably. So I would propose, if the board is in favor, and again, without any budget increase, looking at our last couple hires that didn't get a longevity or a service bump when they were hired, at going to $12.85 after the probation.
Do you do exit interviews with,
No, I don't. I could.
Do you, Martin?
Don't do it with police officers, I do it with my own personnel. If they leave for reasons other than my asking them to leave.
Do you think that would be?
I mean, I can tell you that the 2 guys that are leaving now are mostly because of the salary. The Lake St. Louis is going to double its salary and doesn't really have any ties to this area. And the other one lives in Perryville, and it's going to be a substantial pay raise for him. And he was hinging, and again, I alluded to this earlier, but I made an error in that with what I thought was Martin's approval early on this, had made arrangements for the STEP program to go in when the budget was implemented. And I think he was hinging on that for a while, if he was going to get STEP, because it would be real comparable to what he'd be making after paying insurance at Perryville. And that, I think, made up his mind and sealed his fate, so.
Chief, is it only just the pay scale, or is there other things that kind of snowball, like maybe their tickets aren't being run through?
I mean, there's going to be aggravations in any department in the city, in any city, in any job.
What does that mean, their tickets aren't being run through?
I think he's, I don't mean to.
Go ahead.
no, you pled out or not prosecuted?
Yeah.
Or
What
Not
is
going through the court
there, is there
system.
frustration there that, I'm doing my job, but it's not being carried out?
I think that's going to happen in any department that I've been in, until you get to a point in your career that you realize, I've done my job, I've submitted a good case, and it's out of my hands.
That's exactly how we work here. It's the military, they don't get to make political decisions. When our officers write a citation, that's where their job ends on that citation until it comes to a court process and they may be called to it.
And that's certainly, again, something that's above my pay grade as far as the administration of that, of the judicial line item. That's going to be a frustration anywhere. And like I said, every officer will get frustrated with that, thinking, why am I out here doing anything when nothing's getting done? Until you get to a point in your career that you realize, I've got my job to do, they've got their job to do, and there's a lot to factor in. As far as specific cases, yeah, there are officers that get frustrated with what is interpreted to be a lack of prosecution. But that's not exclusive to St. Genevieve.
Nor is it the police department.
Exactly.
That happens where I work every day.
These
You
guys
make a
fix a pothole,
recommendation, your
and they
superior
go
will
out
say,
the
no,
next
we're going to
day.
do something else, and it pisses you off.
Right. Yeah, so.
Martin, do you think it would be a bad idea if you did a exit
I think it's a good idea.
investigation? I mean, maybe we can learn
I think that's
From
one
there?
idea for Chief Bennett to perform the exit interviews and then submit them to Martin. I think that's an
Or
excellent
Martin
idea.
could do his own there
Standard
to,
practice. Well, I think if you have someone do the exit interview, Don, that is not the person's direct supervisor, I don't think it's going to be real accurate.
Because that's a reflection on the supervisor, too.
Well, no, it's just, the person doing the exit interview has no idea how to interpret what the person exiting is saying. You know what I mean? I could say anything to Martin, but if I say things to Chief Bennett's going to say, well, I understand that, I'm going to write that down, but you and I both know this situation, we're going to go through it, and that's part of the exit interview. The exit interview isn't only the employee that's leaving, it's also the employee supervisor has to comment on the exit interview as well. I think it's really
Maybe a
important.
combination of both of them, because one, if he's leaving and it happens to end up being the supervisor that's the problem that he's leaving.
Right.
Again, if he's leaving, who cares what he says in the interview if it was in front of both of them maybe?
That'd be a good way to approach it.
And, you know, at that point, but if he was only saying it to him and he was the problem that he was leaving, then he can interpret it any way he wants to when he goes to.
I
Not-
agree.
not
Bringing,
the word.
bringing both levels of management together for that interview
Yeah.
would be the best situation,
Yeah,
but you
I'm
can't
amenable to
skip
that, sure.
a level of
Right,
management.
No, you're right.
I think that's the point. I mean, if an officer were leaving because he had a problem with the chief or the assistant chief or his sergeant who was supervising him, I mean, we're going to know it. I mean, it's not going to be a secret. But I think my participation is not a bad thing, and we, we'll structure the interview so we make sure we get opportunity to ask the questions we think are important to future management decisions. And yeah, sure.
Do you think this, obviously, it's not going to have, well, if we went with this program, you say first, it's not going to affect the budget. Second, you think it would help start to retain some people?
I hope so. I hope so. It would benefit both, or I guess incentivize, if that's a word, taking on extra responsibilities as well as longevity. Both would be recognized, and both are recognized, or at least the assignment of duties is recognized now. As far as, if they're taking on dare or evidence or firearms or vehicle maintenance or supervisory role, that's factored in anyways. I would certainly hope that providing a good work environment and a comparable wage would help. I mean, there's always concerns, you got your ALCO leaving, and every year the budget's tighter, those guys feel it, but, I certainly think the support from us, from the city, from the supervisors, and just the continued encouragement will help the people that are willing to stay here. The people that are just chasing a buck or want to go where the excitement is, they're going to go, and you can't tell that in an hour-long interview. Everybody here has interviewed somebody and knows that they're going to tell you what you want to hear, and you weed out what you can weed out. But I certainly think that the people we've hired, for the most part, have been beneficial while they're here. It is costly to train them, and I ran up some quick numbers on that, and they're just the hard numbers. They're not factored in how long it takes. I mean, the people that I hired when I came here, have a really good rapport with people and a good knowledge of the town. After they get off their 12 weeks probation, they don't have a working knowledge of everything there is to know, but, or 12 weeks of training period, I should say, but, it's certainly the dollar amount that we put into training them, we spend about $13,000 on an officer with time and equipment. But again, that doesn't stop with the 12 weeks. Once we let them go on their 12 weeks, they're not the end-all, be-all. I mean, just the experience that they get while they're here, and the longer they're here, the more valuable they are to the department, assuming they're valuable to start with. If that makes sense.
Well, I think everything that everybody has said certainly has its own merits. For Teddy, that it is important that they have a rapport with the community, and that is important, and I agree, it would be nice to have more of them live here, and we can strive to do that. But again, we all hear, I'm sure, hear about the rookies, so to say, and how we're their training grounds, and how, some of them want to, right out of the academy and all gun-ho and want to try to not necessarily make a name for themselves, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you get a bad name because of it, or the city does because of some of those things. Maybe they are a little too aggressive at times, so to say, and it would be good to have some more, be able to keep the more seasoned officers that, I'm not saying have more common sense, but have been trained a little bit better and know how,
They know the environment.
know the environment, right, that's probably a better word. So I think, yeah, these wages, and you gotta be, as Tom says, we gotta be competitive, and if we're competitive, we ought to be able to keep some people.
Well, and excuse me, Joe,
That's right.
on that, I wish all of our officers lived in town too. But there's a reality here. People don't relocate for $12 or $14 an hour jobs. They just don't. And I think we really need to understand that. I have no solution, but I see the problem and I recognize that I don't know how you fix that problem. I wish it was better.
That's kind of what I was going to say about residency. You know, if I got a job in St. Louis, I would not want to live in St. Louis. I'd want to drive from here because I like living in St. Genevieve. Now, I wish that more people liked living in St. Genevieve, but the hard truth is just some people don't, and sometimes those are the people you hire. So why do you want to make them hate it here, and then they're going to want to leave anyway?
If you make that a requirement, you've eliminated a huge pool of applicants.
I wish they all would want to live here. I wish they would, but I don't think that's going to
And I
happen.
like the suggestion of giving an incentive.
Right,
if they
before you
are
got here,
willing to
Tom,
stay
that's
here.
one of the things he talked about, is an incentive for them to live here. You know, they make the
What
choice.
kind of incentive would that
I checked
I
with a
don't
couple
think we
other
really,
departments, and,
got
they,
any
be?
fault.
This is a tough issue. I don't know how you resolve it.
And again, I mean.
I'm sorry, Joe. We keep,
That's all right.
Yeah, we keep interrupting.
yeah.
I mean, I checked with a couple other departments, and it's kind of, one of the problems they've run into is, let's say if they're hiring right out of the academy, they're just, they pay for the, going through the academy. At least when I went through, I had the luxury of the sheriff's department paying for mine. So it's kind of like, doctors and lawyers, they got all this school debt, it costs money to go through the academy too. So they're paying for that, and then they're taking an $11, $12 an hour job. Sometimes you just don't have the funds to pack up and move. And a lot of departments offer an incentive. If you get in here within 90 days, we give you X amount of dollars. And then once you're here, to help with their moving expenses. And if they fulfill their obligation for the first year or something like that, it's like a $2,000, at least the one that I talked to.
What happens is when you get 3 people in a row that get that incentive, and then 3 months
And then
later
you can't
leave,
afford it anymore.
you know what I mean? It's like, it's the sign-on bonus kind of a thing.
In a
You know,
way, but-
That's a nice thing, but you're gonna get a real bad taste in your mouth with that program when 3 of those guys leave 3 months after they got their relocation money. I mean, that's
It's funny how you
a
write
tough
it. You know,
one.
if you write it, they gotta have a residency here for so many years or something like that.
But then the problem with that is you're essentially binding yourself in a contract, and if they don't work out and you need to
Right,
terminate
and they don't
them,
work out,
then
you
you're
got a
bound under
person
that
here
contract
that-
the same
I mean,
as
yeah,
they
that's-
are.
Relocation
That could,
money, relocation money is generally upfront, and it's without ties, because it's impossible to fight that if there's a parting of the ways. I mean, what are we gonna do? We're gonna spend $5,000 suing a guy over $2,000? I mean, it's a terrible issue. I really don't know the answers, but I think that we just look around at what other companies have done, other businesses have done, and I don't know how you fix it. Tough one.
But, I mean, like I
What do we
said,
have to
in
do
the,
to
I
get the,
think just give me the
You know-
go-ahead if the board is comfortable.
as far as the. step-
Yeah, I mean, it's within its budget
step
limit,
weights?
so it doesn't require a budget adjustment. This is a
Okay,
kind of a
so-
policy decision that, and if I left the impression that it was okay with me, it was more the impression that if it's within your budget, you manage your department. But when he came back to me, I thought, this is a decision that we're gonna make beyond this, it has impact beyond this budget year. And you need to be informed, because when we come in next year, it's gonna be reflected in his personnel budget.
I mean, I mean, I haven't seen all the other budgets. But from what I've heard, the chief's done an excellent job of year after year after year coming in under budget, and part of me says, well, then we're not taking a good enough look at it. for realistic numbers.
You know,
But, I got the utmost faith in the chief. If he says he can do it with what he's got,
I've given
Then we
this
should-
speech before, but the risk of coming in under budget every year is at the end of the year, people look at
Right.
your budget and say, well, you didn't spend that dollar, so let's.
but he's not
spend it
out
somewhere
spending
else.
money that he's
Well,
not,
the last thing I would say on this, Eric, and to me, this is just a management decision that if you want to take that path, we as a board, if we support you, will support this. The only issue I have with giving pay increases based on longevity, what if the guy that's been there the longest now makes the most money, but he's not the most valuable officer that you have? That's an issue, right? I prefer as a manager, I want you to give me my lump sum, if it's 3% or 4%, whatever it is, and then based on evaluations, I'll hand out that raise accordingly to try to give incentive to the guys that are doing well, to continue to do well, and give incentive to guys that don't do so good on their evaluations to do better.
Right.
That'd be my only fear in the step increase thing. It's a very,
My fear with that is that it would almost come off as a bonus, which we can't do in the city. But if it's still,
merit pay increase.
Yeah,
It's not a
but-
bonus. There's nothing bonus about that. A merit pay increase. Whichever way you want to go, I'm,
well, if it's a one-time,
I
if
want you to
it's a
manage it.
one-time expense, is that, I don't know,
what do you mean?
you said you were more in favor of a one-time lump sum
No.
merit.
I want to give you, every year, I want to give you.
Okay.
You give away, you can increase your department personnel budget by 3%.
Right,
As you see fit based on merit. Not giving people a check for one lump sum.
right.
Just
Okay.
letting you make that
I
decision.
misunderstood.
That's
We
all.
see it as one lump sum, but you
Right.
manage
Right.
within
Right.
that.
Well,
I mean,
one thing he wants to do though is kind of up the base wage of patrolmen.
Oh,
You know, that,
I'm with whatever you want
they're
to do.
fighting to, the fast food is trying to fight to make more money than the policeman.
some places you can already.
Um,
I mean, truthfully, though, I mean,
It's tough.
the thing about the most tenured guy maybe not be the most valuable thing, the best, I mean, the way I look around that is, that all comes with supervision. If supervisor's doing their job, then that person's gonna be held up to a higher standard to make that, I mean, you know.
In a perfect world, that would be that way.
Well,
There is no perfect world. The best manager will not be able to see that from time to time.
Well, and by the same standards that we entered into this, and it may have been before you got here, a step plan essentially commits the board and future boards to honoring that. The problem, and we've run into this the last few years with no raise or a minimal raise, then the merit is almost a slap in the face.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, there are times, a 1% raise is just throwing it out there, is not as appreciated as, a 3% raise or 4% raise.
Sure.
And I know that sounds stupid, but
You say it's like
in
leaving a
years
kid-
that you don't get a raise, then the merit is, well, I'm not worth anything if they're not giving me a raise. I'm not making my point as.
Yeah, you are. I think you are. I understand.
Whereas this, if this is factored in, you've met your 5-year,
Listen,
and
if
you're
this
gonna
is,
get.
if this is the approach you want to take, I'll support it. I'm sure that you've thought about all the pros and cons of this, and like everything, there's some pros and cons. If this is the direction you want to move in, I certainly will support it.
and I think long-term, this is a better spending of the money than wasting the money. And not that it's a total waste, but we're having to keep spending money to train an officer.
That won't change, Joe, because if the pay is still so low, we're
But
always
this is
going
a
to have.
step in the,
If somebody's been here 5 years,
Right.
and they decide they want to make more money, they're going to go somewhere else and make more money. You can't
but this
stop
is a
that.
step in the right direction to try to get that retention is what I'm saying.
You know,
It's not gonna fix everything
enough.
today.
That's why I-
Not enough.
Right.
I think we all pretty well agree.
Yeah, I think if I
We're gonna let the chief run with this.
It's your department, I'm,
Tom's saying that, hey,
The longevity.
you know,
this is what you
this
feel
is
it
what he
takes.
wants, to support him 100%. So
Is that on?
I think
on
we're all
stepping
agreeing on
and
that.
starting, or is that?
I don't know what.
As long as it fits the budget, I'm
Do
with
what you
you.
need to do.
Well,
I
Do
think,
we have to
I think
go-
there needs to be maybe some more discussion. I think we definitely need to raise the starting part of it to make you more competitive, for sure. Now, after that, as far as the steps, maybe going forward, again, does it make sense that longevity is the right approach to doing it based on other people that work for the city? I don't know. I hate to say that you're discriminating maybe against your other employees that work in other departments, if you base it all on longevity. I certainly think we got to do something, and probably the easiest, the best way to try to maybe keep people or certainly attract people would be to make that base higher. And I'm certainly all for that. Let's start there and have more discussion about the rest of it.
And I recognize what you said about other departments not feeling like they may be on equal grounds when it comes to if the police department has a step program, but no other department is getting shot at or carrying a gun.
Yeah, they don't have equal
I mean,
rights.
the
understand.
responsibility of police officers is so much, just dramatically higher than any of our other employees that I would be comfortable to say to any other city employee, look, it's a police department, and their responsibility is so much different than yours. It's just different.
And the turnover is different.
You'll
No, that's
get
true too.
definitely.
no doubt about
And that's the whole plan, is to
Right.
start with
I
a
agree
higher
with what you said there.
basic pay and retain officers, is what this is.
I certainly like if you could, and then you get into a lot more subjective things, though, when you talk about the merit part. I think that's definitely the best way to go, because, as you say, you may have people, and we certainly do have people, if you just look around, we have people that is because they've even been here longer, just because of even cost of living raises and raises through the years, that are making a lot more than somebody that hasn't been here as long, and that are probably more valuable. So-
Often, I have faced that problem where somebody came in 10 years ago, was hired at this level and got their incremental increases as the budget would allow it, but then I got to hire somebody to replace a coworker of theirs in today's market. And I couldn't hire somebody for what that 15-year employee was making. It's difficult.
So what's the steps that we have to do?
Well, I would like to recommend that we go ahead and authorize him, as he could do anyway, to increase the base. And I'm a little uncomfortable with going ahead with the step increase for one department versus another, because I think it creates a possibility that I want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves for claims against, for discrimination or some other civil action before we do it. But once we discount that, I'll report back to you.
I would think council could give a very quick recommendation on that.
I'd like that.
Chief, can I ask one question
Yes, sir.
on looking at the step wage on the different officers there? The years of service for St. Gen Police Department, each have the same number 1 and number 5, but yet there's $2.64 difference. And I realize he's got more years of service as a cop,
Which
but is he
one's-
worth that much more?
Which one specifically are you talking about?
1 and 5.
1 and 5.
I'm not sure.
2 year.
Which one?
Officer number 1 and officer number
Yeah.
5 on the list.
Oh, okay, so Officer 1 has 13 years of experience. He came here with 13 years of experience, but he's been here for 2 years.
That's true,
And it's-
but is there that much between the guy that's just 2 years? I mean, they both been here the same. I know the one's been here for 11 years more, but the guy, number 5, may be doing a better job than number 1, but yet he's making $264 less.
How
I
do
mean,
you
is that-
say that sitting here, Donnie?
Huh?
How do you say that?
Experience helps.
The chief knows that, but how can you say he may be doing a better job or not than the other officer? What do
Well,
you
they
base
both
that
got 2
on?
years of service here.
Well,
the
But,
chief-
but one has 11 years of
Well, I
experience
realize that,
before
but
he
is he
got
worth
here.
264 more than The other one?
I would think at some
Evidently, the
companies, yeah.
chief thinks so.
I think it's the same in any department. If you hire somebody with experience, you have to compensate them for.
Because
he's
he's
more
more
our
report.
Our role,
like
and our role as the Board of Aldermen is to set policy, not to micromanage any department, to set policy and allow Martin and his department heads to manage their business.
Okay.
All right,
Lead it around.
good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
They know what to do, right?
Yes, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Pat.
Mayor Grimminger,
Here.
Alderwoman Codwell. Here. Alderman Couch. Here. Alderman John Stupi. Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Donnie Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Hook. Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I guess we'll go right into Dave Van Leer from Cochrane.
Thanks again. I'm David Bandler. I'm from Cochrane. I wanted to come down and address the board about the water main project that is underway. We've been working on getting this going for quite a while now. Now that we are actually under contract and working on the project, I wanted to come and address the board and let everybody know what's going on. You should have an update in your packet. What you got this month is pretty brief and not a whole lot of information in there. As we continue with the project, we'll be able to provide you with more information and give you more details as to exactly what's going on. But tonight I just wanted to let you know exactly what we've been doing so far. We do have all of the field work done. We've had our survey crews out. They've performed what we call a topographic survey on all of the project areas we've located where the streets are, where the existing utilities are. That'll help us determine exactly where we want to run the new water mains. Over the next few weeks, we'll be preparing some preliminary plans that we'll be meeting with Steve and other people from the city on. Get city approval on the plans, and we'll continue moving forward with those. As far as schedule for the project goes, there's a few things that could affect the schedule. One of which being funding, which we will discuss a little bit later. As of right now, we're proceeding with the project. Our goal is to submit plans for permitting the DNR by mid-January, and that will put us in a position where we can bid the project in March and start construction in April. That is, as of now, that's the schedule we're proceeding on. There could be things that change that schedule and affect the schedule. I'll also say it's a pretty aggressive schedule also to get things going that quickly. The goal of that schedule is to get the project built this year. We feel like if we start in April, we can be completing October, November, and then completing in September, October, somewhere in there. That puts us in a good position for reseeding yards where we need to. The grass will grow if we end later than that. Things will be tore up for the entire winter. So that's kind of most of the update I had. Martin, do you want to discuss the funding?
But, as you know, we delayed the design work on this project so that we could apply for, and we did receive a grant where the state would reimburse us for 45% of the design work. It also made us eligible for funding through the state revolving fund. So I've been talking to Dave and his associates about applying for the SRF funding. It might save us some money, but it'll delay the project for a year or maybe more while we're waiting for the state Used to be the revolving fund was a desirable thing that people wanted to use because the private market was producing interest rates at the 7%, and the state money was coming in at 3%. So there was enough savings to put up with not just the delay, but the administrative cost. Today, the spread between the private funding and the state funding is more like 1%. So I have initiated inquiries. The approval for incurring the debt for this has already occurred. So it doesn't, the citizens have already voted, and you haven't exceeded your borrowing ability under the original commitment. So we're within that, and now it's a question of finding the most efficient and economical way of raising the money. First State Community Bank has a year ago, a little over a year ago, opened up a municipal financing operation, and they've been going about the business of financing equipment purchases and infrastructure improvements all over the area. And so I've initiated a conversation with them, and we've sent them our financial information, and they're going to give me back, I think, by early next week, an offer, not a commitment. We can then compare that to the SRF funding and make a decision. I expect to have that decision before you at our meeting in January.
If we're talking about 1%, holding us back a year, what type of cost increases on materials and things I mean, it seems to me like that'd be a pretty quick decision to take, go ahead and fund it privately, but is that accurate?
We would expect material prices to go up. Another thing to consider is the continued maintenance you're going to have on the existing failing mains for that upcoming year. Additional main breaks. I know Steve and his guys are doing lots of repairs on the water main, doing that for another year to up to 2 years, depending on when the next project would.
So 1% cost saving could.
If it's 1%, there's no question what my recommendation is going to be. If it's 3%, I don't know, it's $1 million worth of work. It's,
Or what other options other than the one, I mean, you got others other than the one bank, right?
Well, any bank, any lender could buy our bonds. That's just.
You're going to use it for a barometer?
Yeah, these people are specifically set up to do this level of financing. I'm not suggesting that we take them without putting it out for competitive bidding, but
just to know where we stand.
Yeah, they're going to give me the ballpark we're in, and we can make a decision.
Dave, we've got one thing, because I saw the locates and all that going up on Main Street and Little Rock Road. We've got that trail that I hope we get around to building one of these days. All of that would be able to be used, because I know that hasn't been done yet on the trail. Now, the trail design and all that, and I think all of that surveying's been done on the trail, right, Jimmy?
Yes.
I mean, it's a few years old, but it's still good. But all those locates and all that stuff could still be used on that project obviously when you're done with it, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah,
Because we're kind of going in the same, a lot of that trail is going to follow the same line as where you're going with a lot of that water main.
Yeah, I mean, unless they would be moved for some reason. You're saying that maybe whoever designs this trail could use part of the information we've been collecting?
Right, yeah.
That seems reasonable.
Okay. Just might save a little bit of time when we get around to letting the bids or whatever on that, which is, any update on that?
Two items that the state and the engineer are still communicating about.
Well, that's better than the.
It's better than 72.
Okay. Two, all right.
Any other questions? I'd be glad to try to address them. As we proceed with the project, I'll plan on, if the board would like, I'll plan on being here once a month or so to let you know how things are going, how we're proceeding. And then as we get under construction, we'll do the same thing, let you know what's going on. That'll obviously be more visible to you guys, and they'll be just driving around town, you'll see what's going on, but we'll be here to give you guys updates and things that have happened over the past month.
Okay. Great, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Martin?
Okay, the first item of my report regards the roads in the Crest Lawn Cemetery. You know that they're old, and one of them was added when the cemetery was expanded and never paved. And the cemetery fund grows because we spend a little less than it costs to maintain the cemeteries every year. And we have some cash sitting in that account that can only be used for cemetery improvements. And so we thought the best improvement we could do would be to pave those roads. So engineer has met with me, and I'll be getting information from him on design and a cost estimate. But preliminarily, we think it can be done for the funds that are available. Mississippi Lime had another Citizens Advisory Panel. The two noteworthy items were that they had on their work list was working with Union Pacific on the railroad crossings. I explained to them that not much had been done on that, and so they committed to following up on getting that done. And Sandra is working with them on redoing the billboard there, the St. Genevieve billboard when you're southbound on the highway. So it appears they're committed to cooperating with us on getting that spiffed up. On the Merchant Street House, Mr. Hilbert was going to give me a quote. He has not done so, but he's busy taking down the mill building. In the meantime, Tom Couch met with a guy who's met with me, who lives in town, manager of the CVC in Crystal City, and he expressed interest in hiring someone to take it down if we would allow him to own the property after the building's removed. So he's going to give me the name and information on the guy that'll be doing the demolition to make sure he's qualified and has insurance and all those things. And then we'll work out an arrangement, hopefully, if he comes back, where that can happen. I mentioned to you at an earlier meeting about talking to Rico regarding records retention. You know, we have a lot of paper records that are exposed, sitting on shelves, and so it looks like we can get all of our records, and they looked at all of our records, scanned and stored electronically for $8,000, which is something I would propose to put in next year's budget. Then we would get a scanner, and we would, every time we create a record, we would scan it in. Scanning does not satisfy the Secretary of State's record retention rules, so it doesn't do away with having to keep the paper. But if we store it off-site, it allows us to save our records in the case of a natural disaster, and even if we were to lose the hard copies. And it also makes them available to you in a searchable format. So instead of Pam having to go into the basement and spend half a day thumbing through dusty, moldy boxes to find something that happened 20 years ago, we would be able to pull it up electronically.
How far back would they be going on that?
Pardon me?
How far back are they?
Every record we own.
Oh, really?
For $8,000. They send a crew down here, or if we allow them, and I think we would do, it's cheaper, is they will take our records. There'll be a chain of custody form that we fill out, and everybody knows where they are and who's got them and all that. But and they just do it. The Transportation Advisory Council is that quarterly meeting that happens with the State Highway Department, and we had that meeting. No surprise, you probably heard this before, but they repeated it. There are no new construction projects being designed for the state highway system. Everything they do will be maintenance until something happens. Who knows? Maybe Governor Nixon will get his toll. Met with the owners of the Riverview at the park to discuss the construction schedule. We were getting concerned that the clock was ticking, and we were waiting for information from their design professional so we could approve the plans, and we weren't getting it. There was an article in the paper that suggested that this project is being held up because we're sitting on an approval. That is not the case. They have reoriented the building. We've signed off on everything, but when they move the building, you know, the grading plan changes and the stormwater plans change and the erosion sedimentation control plan changes. And it's not, it sounds big, it really isn't, but it's the first thing that happens. So we got to, and yesterday the architect called and said, you know, it's his fault. He thought they were on the way and they didn't get here. And they're going to get here. So as soon as they get here, we're ready to sign off on it. We have no outstanding issues. We just need to have the plans that they're going to use to build the building before we can issue the permit.
We did. We've had the plans for 3 or 4 months. Jim and Jimmy's here. We looked at them, gave them what issues that we had with them, and got back to them. And we've been waiting for those answers back for that period of time. Correct.
Yeah, the big thing when they rotate the buildings, really, wherever you go put footings, you do soil samples. But when you rotate everything, then the soil samples have to be redone. And that's what we're waiting on, basically. It was like 11 or 12 items, but they were mainly minor.
So we were waiting on them. They weren't
Yes.
waiting on us.
And we're still waiting on them.
We're still waiting.
You know, also in the article, it said that, you know, once they break ground, there's going to be 18 months before they maybe complete this. How does that work with the TIP?
Well, as you know, the last day for the TIF is December 20th of 2015.
So there's no way they're
Now,
going to meet that date?
your prior agreement with them called for them to have an occupancy permit before the money was distributed. But there's no statutory requirement or anything in the TIF rules that requires that. It was just what was negotiated, because I'm sure, I wasn't here, but I'm sure the conversation was, if we decide to give you this money, how do we make sure that you're going to do what it is you're promising to do? And that's what was worked out. I have told them that right now they're at risk. I mean, it's $337,500 that is, you know, after December 20th, can't be dispersed. And so we agreed that they could, if they took the existing agreement and prepared an addendum that addressed those questions, one of the things would be what will trigger the distribution of the funds. And I have recommended substantial completion, and that be defined specifically. And that won't necessarily mean that all the equipment is in, or that the carpets are down, or what, but the building will be, you know, substantially complete in terms of the structure, so that it could be occupied as soon as the finish work is done. But they have to define that, and they know that December the 20th is the day, and I'm waiting to hear from them. And I'll bring it to you when I get it.
Okay.
I met with the levy district directors for further discussions on whether sharing an employee, which I mentioned to you at a prior meeting, is a good idea. You said if we could work something out, that would be fine with you. It's not. It doesn't seem feasible. I mean, someday they need somebody 50 hours a month. Sometimes it's 5 hours a month, and you know, they want somebody's on call, and we kind of mutually agreed that there's just too many variables, and that they would have to figure out another way to meet their needs. So we'll be looking at replacing our part-time park employee as the spring starts to arrive.
Questions, anybody? Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go to the staff reports. Mick, you happen to be first.
Mayor and Board, I think you've got my operational report in front of you. The only few big things that we have currently are some grant applications. I think you addressed a couple of those in your special meeting. The AFG grant that's on the report, we had an issue with that. Last year, there was a requirement that came in for a a SAM.gov number that is attached to the city's DUNS number. And last year, we did not put in a report. I've been delegating this to Mr. Steiger, my assistant chief. We had some personal issues last year, and we did not get the AFG grant submitted. That was one of the requirements, so we did not get into that, did not understand that that was a requirement that was needed. Got into it this year, got to about the 10th hour, and found out that we needed this number, approached the city, and it's one of those issues of you either pay somebody a sum of money to get it for you right now, or we can get it in relatively good time. So the AFG grant will not be submitted this year. That was some funds that we were looking at to replace an old breathing air compressor that we have. But Kenny and Pam are working together to get that number so that that'll be available for next year's grant. Conservation grant, I think you also looked at. We want to replace the a water pump on the back of our brush truck that's considerably old, and the pressure's not good enough to get a good stream of water out of our brush fire hoses. So that is another grant, and that's a matching fund grant. We were wanting to take that money out of rural fire fund, which we have, but I'm pleased to announce that just recently we received a $2,000 grant from Mississippi Lime Company. So I would propose to use that $2,000 in grant funds as our match if we receive that matching grant. If not, we may come back with pulling that additional funds out of rural fire fund and then using the Mississippi Lime to match our funds. So if we don't get that grant, we may come back and request that from you at a future date.
Does the old pump that you would be replacing still function, just doesn't generate?
It functions, but it's
40-plus years.
40-plus years old.
Well, does it have any surplus value? Or is it something we could use in the park department as an example?
You know something, we'll give it to you. We wouldn't have any problems letting parks or city works have it, so. And actually, we've got another one that's the same pump that we just kept around for parts, so there'll be a parts pump with it, so. But, you know, those things just wear out the, that type of.
Spend a lot of time hauling water around,
Sure.
watering the plants and things in the city, and if we had something.
Absolutely, and it may be okay for that. We need.
Yeah, we don't need high pressure. We
need more pressure
volume.
than volume. This is an old volume pump, and, you know, it just is what it is, so. And specifically for the conservation grant, if you address specific natural cover type firefighting, with them you have a better chance of getting grants than something that is a little bit more off the wall. So we're hoping that that's a positive thing. So the only other thing I think I have is that we are, I think you also addressed in your special meeting bids for replacement turnout gear. So we've got those as a first reading, and we appreciate your consideration on that. As of that, I think I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Chief,
Yes.
you know, on the ISO rating, you say that you have 60 days from the date of the letter This is the letter forthcoming, or is that the letter on the 22nd of
Well,
October? or what?
Yeah, the mayor received the letter package with the ISO audit information. I was copied on that. I think the Water Department, Martin, there was 4 packages sent. So this was just a confirmation that says we are going to a Class 5. I think the letter indicated that you had 30 days to respond to the 1022 letter, indicating whether we were going to put together a plan to retain our Class 4 rating.
Okay, and, yeah, it says 60 days from the date of the letter.
Yeah, so within 60 days of the date of the letter, yeah, we would have had to have a plan back to them that says we were going to do something to retain our Class 4. I assume we have not responded to this, so as of right now, we are a Class 5.
Does the upgrades like we're doing as far as replacing mains for the water availability have any play in this?
No, not really, because they take into consideration that that main is already there, although an upgrade is good and doable. If you did not replace that main, you'd probably have more retrogressive action than maintaining that main. So replacing a main, no. A new main, out, taking in another area of some sort, yeah, that might have some bearing. Not major bearing, not enough to get you a Class 4.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Great, thank you, man.
Thank you, Mitch.
Sandra?
Good evening, everyone. So, as you know, we just finished our Christmas walk weekend, and it was a very strong weekend. It has boosted our December numbers, and while the numbers that you have on the report tonight are November, in November we had 977 guests through the Welcome Center. Our year-to-date is up 8%. The month of November was down quite a bit from last year. And I pulled out the numbers for the past 5 years, and November of 2013 was just a really strong year. Typically, we had 921, 786. Then last year suddenly jumped up to 1,347. We had really nice weather, and advertising and some other things were probably a factor. And this year was back to 977, which was about on par with previous years. But I'm excited to say that with November numbers, we were up to 19,563 on the year, so I'm pretty confident we're going to exceed 20,000 this year for the first time, so that's really exciting. As I said, we are up 8% this year over last year overall, and the Christmas walk weekend we had almost 350 people through the Welcome Center, so that was a really strong Saturday for us, obviously. The staff were really hustling that day, and so that will put us easily over last year's December number. So even though last year was a really dismal December, and December doesn't typically have a really strong amount of foot traffic, I think we're going to finish all right in December, and we're going to pass 20,000. That's my prediction. In November, we did sell 20 adult passports and 14 student passports. Technically, the passport sales end in December because 2 of the historic homes are closed because they don't have heat in those houses. So they open them up through the Christmas walk, and then that's it for the year. I just returned from the Travel South Trade Show, cooperating in the Missouri Division of Tourism's booth area down there, and took appointments with travel planners for both individual and group guests from around the country. It was a very productive show from Missouri's standpoint. It was Missouri's first entree into the Travel South Trade Show, and it was very well received, I would say. As you know, if you saw in the paper this week, we just introduced the Fleur-de-Lis Bucks program. Those are available for sale now at the Welcome Center. We also supported the Saturday after Thanksgiving is always the Shop Small Saturday, and In November, we also had the Cookie Crumb Trail. Cookie Crumb Trail was up over last year, so we're pleased about that. Of course, that's sponsored by St. Genevieve Downtown Renewal. And the Shop Small effort is Downtown Renewal, Chamber of Commerce, and also local merchants. We do have a new business that will be moving in soon to one of the empty buildings on Merchant Street that was just vacated by Sunshine Cakery. This is going to be Main Street Storytellers. The gentleman's name is Brian Gray, and he currently has photography on display in one of Sam Conlon's shops on Main Street. And he's been getting very involved with some of the art walks and things, and he's just really looking forward to having a storefront here in St. Genevieve. So sometime after the first of the year, we expect to see him moving in. And I'm sure everybody's been tracking on the Audubon's development and the Parish Center. We're very excited about all these things, of course, and trying to support them to the greatest degree possible. Next Wednesday, the Welcome Center is hosting a workshop in conjunction with Landmarks, as well as the Foundation for Restoration of St. Genevieve and the St. Genevieve Downtown Renewal Program on the topic of historic tax credits. So if there's anyone who is interested in learning more about this, either because they own a property or maybe they're involved in advising in some way, this would be an excellent learning opportunity. There's no charge for the workshop. It will be on Wednesday, December 17th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Welcome Center. So if you'd like to sign up, please call the Welcome Center at 883-7097, and we'll be glad to add your name to the list. Yes?
At prior meetings, not necessarily here, but maybe you mentioned it here, you talked about putting together some press releases or publicity or articles on the theme that things are happening in downtown St. Genevieve, the Audubon and Rotary. And I saw such an article online. Was that your work?
In the Farmington paper?
No.
Well, they did pick it up.
Okay.
Yes, there was one in the Farmington paper. There was a small article in Cape Girardeau, and I'm still trying to get additional coverage after the first of the year. So yeah, I'm still pushing for that.
Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I think Dave is a little bit under the weather. I talked to him this morning, and so you've got his written report here. If you've got any questions, I'm sure Mark can probably answer them.
Oh, sure.
Make a quick comment on that. I stopped by the Public Works building this afternoon briefly and had a chance to visit with some of the guys. And they were telling me that it was remarkable how much better working conditions they had inside the building this year as opposed to prior to the fire. All the glass walls are pretty much gone and good insulation and new heat. So there was a silver lining in that little disaster.
And I think, and you're certainly, your trained eye would be better to comment on it than mine. It looks like a safer working environment.
You know, I didn't go in to look for things to beat the guys up about, but I was real happy to see that a lot of the things that we talked about in the past were put into place. They got a lot more wall storage, so the ladders, instead of leaned up, are restrained against the walls, and it's a much cleaner environment, and I think it definitely is going to be a safer environment for our staff.
Who takes over when Dave's out?
Gary?
Anything else? Eric?
Good evening.
Fairly brief report this month. Still working on some computer issues. We had a firewall router that gave us some issues, but I think we're approaching getting back on track with that. So it affected our MDTs, the mobile data terminals, as far as being able to connect in. So we're working on reestablishing all of those connections. Reported in here, and it was also in the paper recently, the grant that we submitted to the Department of Public Safety was not approved or not funded for the body-worn cameras, which was a budget item that I proposed prior to October. So at some future budget, I may come and approach the board about a budget amendment on that to try to fund those, and certainly research and find the best.
Buy everybody one.
With this $275 million,
Something like that, what that was,
potentially.
that was gonna be for?
Yes.
There's still a match on that, but I don't think I need to tell anybody here about waiting on the federal government to approve funding. So, we had an issue, and I certainly can't get into it now, but in October that the body cameras would have come in very, very handy, and I think we'll probably end up having some litigation over an incident that happened. That again, the body cameras would have been very beneficial to the officer in the department. So I certainly think it's something that we could use and would be money well spent.
Could you, resubmit the grant, since all the things have changed when you first submitted for these cameras, this is before the Ferguson?
That was mentioned in the grant. The Ferguson stuff happened in August. It was Jurafet weekend that occurred. The verdict hadn't been released yet, but the initial incident had. So it was referenced in the grant language. We had an issue as far as they didn't feel that I strongly described the officer safety content of the body-worn cameras as much as a liability issue. So it's a very competitive grant process, and I wasn't competitive enough.
I think in light of recent events all over the country, we should refocus our efforts and not worry about grants and sharpen our pencil and get this funding for the city out of our general fund going, have whatever we got to do from an accounting standpoint. It protects individual citizens, it protects the officer and the city. Everybody wins with this type of information, and I think this is not going to go away. The focus is right now, right on top of that sort of thing, and it's not going to go away for a long time. I think we need to figure out how to squeeze $8,000. What was that? How much was?
It was no more than $10,000. It was a $10,000 grant.
I think we need to figure out how to squeeze that out of our current budget.
And with it being actual tax funds, we would certainly look at the most competitive and functional camera. I was looking for a pretty expensive camera that would have met all of our needs, but
I've read several news articles and talking about the pros and cons. And from my perspective and what I've read, it certainly appears that the pros outweigh the cons. And I just challenge the board for it to take time and figure out how to get this done.
And I'll certainly make that proposal at a later date, very quickly, hopefully the January meeting. And if you hadn't got a chance to read the article that the paper did, it was a good article, and Sheriff Stolzer brought up some very good points. Certainly just for whatever it's worth, I have 100% faith in my officers and the department, and the nationwide implication that police officers are not trustworthy and that their word means nothing is certainly insulting. And again, we're in a small town environment, and I think that my officers treat people well, and I think that's important here to be efficient and effective. And we would certainly look at the policies that would pertain to the body-worn cameras to protect everybody's privacy.
I just think it's a trust but verify.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
on both sides, not just to make sure the officer's doing his job correctly, but to make sure that what the citizen does is being.
And I alluded to that in the article with the statements that I gave to the paper. I, in all honesty, have every incident that's been challenged that we had on videotape has cleared our officer. And 90% of the time, the person says, "Oh, you know what? I didn't remember that happening. Never mind. Thanks for your time," and walks out with their tail between their legs. And I think that it certainly gives us the opportunity to be more effective as supervisors and see how they're treating people. The concerns that I would have and would certainly want to to have a very comprehensive policy on it is the privacy rights, both for the officers and for citizens. You know, if these videos are open and sunshine law and can be reviewed by anybody, you know, there's a lot of sensitive information, both layout of victims' houses and, you know, certainly some issues that I think need to be very tightly protected that I would want to research and make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. But it is, again, something that I plan on proposing in the near future. So we're still up several reports, running a pretty consistent amount of calls for service. You know, we are seeing a pretty good rise in heroin cases and other drug cases, and you know, I've gotten some concerning phone calls both from this board and from citizens. You know that you know, and of course there's always speculation and rumors and information. Information is the big thing for us. If it's speculation or rumors, either one, a source is a source, and if it's good information, we certainly want it. And anybody that's listening, you know, if you have information or see something that doesn't seem right or look right, or you have concerns about a loved one or a friend or a friend's loved one, you know, certainly let us know. But you know, unfortunately, it's a drug that anybody with $20 or $25 can go up to the city and score some and bring it back down. You know, I don't have any specific information that we have any heroin kingpins in town, but anybody that has heroin and is selling is a kingpin in town. So again, you know, the police department operates off of information, hopefully good information. Not all information we get is good, but any information is better than no information. So I would certainly urge everybody to contact us and let us know what they know.
Are you working on these computers yourself, you think?
Unfortunately.
You got a tech guy on staff?
I don't, and I would love the city to have a tech guy on staff. I've learned far more about IT stuff than I ever thought I would. And I impress myself sometimes, I don't mind telling you, but other times, as you can see, I don't have much hair left, and there's a pretty good reason for that, so.
There's your record with circular saws.
Thank you, Joe.
So you're gonna have to get somebody in?
That was something. We retain a service that will remote in. I've also actually talked to a person that helps out with the chamber. As you guys know, I'm on the chamber board there. Just to have somebody actually on site look at what we have and help me configure some stuff, and that's been very helpful too. But you know, we don't have a lot of problems, but when we have problems, it's almost debilitating. I have a proposal on the agenda for later that kind of pertains to some of that. Our reporting software that we use, ITI, Information Technologies, is offering a what they call a hosted program, which will be a backup program for our records management system, which again, kind of like scanning the documents, will store some of our information off-site. It's about the same cost as our maintenance fee that we're paying now anyways. So I have a motion or a ordinance, resolution, is it an ordinance? To enter into that agreement. So I'm sure I'll talk about that, but it kind of goes hand in hand, and it will still allow us to use the mobile data terminals as we have been.
Chief, you've done more research than I have on these body-worn cameras.
Mm-hmm.
They claim that they cannot have them on the whole shift because the batteries don't last. I mean,
Batteries and storage, just data storage for a 12-hour shift. And honestly, there's a lot of times, you know, if the officer's going to the bathroom or whatever, that just doesn't, him eating dinner just doesn't need to be on film. And, yeah, you know, they laugh, but I mean, what's that?
Do they make them that operate on a loop so that?
I wouldn't imagine. I mean, you would want to take the opportunity or to have a chance of erasing something that's vital.
Well, but that's the point, is when something happens, that you want to say it's on the loop and you store it.
Correct.
Otherwise, you know, it's recording, it can't account for the battery life, but, you know, it's recording 4 hours of information, and it eliminates
right.
the oldest as the newest comes in.
Yeah, and again, there's some policy that is out there, and I need to see kind of what the industry standard is for retaining that, if it's 30 days or whatever for keeping all those videos. But I would certainly be more in favor of a per call or per officer's discretion. I still put a lot of faith in officer's discretion as far as when that incident needs to be recorded, or a set list of things that are beyond the officer's discretion. These incidents need to be recorded, but, you know, the way our car cameras were set up, they could be activated with the overhead lights, or the officer had the opportunity to turn those on should a situation that doesn't normally require the attention happens. You know, they could activate it that way, and I would be more in favor of that type of situation than a recording 24/7 or 12-hour day. Yes,
Chief,
sir.
it would seem to me that that's not a policy that we necessarily have to come up with from scratch.
Correct.
I mean, these cameras are being used in departments all over the country, and I'm sure that you could have access to some of those policies, and even talking with our legal counsel about, you know, having it, the whole idea is to have evidence of what occurred.
Correct.
So you'd have to be extremely cautious with giving just every individual their own discretion. Because
Right.
their discretion may not meet your discretion,
Well,
or
like I said,
certainly
I
may not
think-
meet legal counsel's discretion. So
Right.
I just think there's policies out there that you can amend to fit
Mm-hmm.
to our city, and hopefully we can get you in a position where you have to hurry up and do that.
Right, and I have some really good contacts. In fact, I was at a meeting today over at MAC with a lot of other chiefs and sheriffs, and that subject came up, and you know, I've got some really good contacts and good policy that's out there that can
Right
be
now, we're
amended.
just wasting time talking about it until we figure out how to pay for them.
All right.
Well,
I
my
agree.
point being, Eric, that if you're running down the street and you forget to turn it on, and you go around a corner, somebody shoots at you,
Mhm.
you don't have it on record because
Mhm.
I would think the batteries, like a cell phone, would last longer than a 12-hour shift, but
Right. Again, without having the information, or the, I'm not in favor of running 24/7 or running a 12-hour shift, just because there's certainly things that don't need to be recorded.
Eric, what about isn't the One Community Foundation grant cycle up December the 31st applications? Did you
Yes,
think of that one?
when I submitted the Department of Public Safety grant, I was going to submit for for ballistic vests. That grant specifically said that they don't fund ballistic vests because there are other grants specifically for that. So I made a proposal to the Community Foundation for the body ballistic vests and the grant through DPS for the body-worn cameras. So,
Gotcha, okay.
so I have a grant submission in right now
All right.
for ballistic vests.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Petrie's report in your packet.
Yeah, she's not here because she has back issues, but I do want to point out that one of the tasks that she was assigned when she first came here was to get us up to date with the State Historic Preservation Office reporting on the certified local government reports, and she has done that. So we are now ensured to be in good standing with the SHPO as a certified local government. That certification allows citizens to access funds if they're available for historic preservation activities. She's included some information more information you probably need on the certified local governments, but you know, feel free to read that at your pleasure. She's also included some information about the proposed changes in the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Monday, representatives from the State Historic Preservation Office and the Corps of Engineers will be here to meet with us and discuss the proposed changes. We want to make sure that before anything is done, we aren't undertaking anything, alterations that would affect our standing with those two agencies, and they're, I think, pleased that we asked, and I'm looking forward to the meeting. I want to thank the aldermen who have been and those who will in the future. submit information about what you see happening in your ward. Petrie's got a list here of some of which came from aldermen, of notifications and actions we've taken to try and ensure that St. Genevieve stays clean and safe and a pleasant place to live and work. That's it. Yes.
Certainly not a loaded question, just an honest question. How about an emergency response or action plan for the city? Is that getting closer to the top of the list of things we're going to do or refresh?
We subscribe to the county emergency, and are part of the county emergency plan. We did talk about having one for local employees. The role of the water department, the street department, the police department, the fire department.
It's all captured in
It's
the
all
county
captured in
plan?
that plan.
Okay.
And what we don't have is, what does Pam do?
Right.
Or
Who's
Sue
managing?
do? And that's, we have not made much progress on that.
Okay.
Okay, Steve.
Evening, everyone.
Steve?
Start off by letting you guys know the water plant SCADA system went down again last month. We did bring in our IT department from Columbia. They were in town for 2 days. Actually, pretty well rebuilt the computer that was there. Got the computer up and running again. It sounded like whenever they left that was about the last effort they're going to be able to make on that system. The holdup with the original SCADA project itself, there's a panel upstairs at the water plant that has, it's basically the main control panel for communication panel, and we had some problems with it last month also, and the month before. The microcom representative, Keith Lucanato, he was able to get it going again. That panel wasn't in the original project to be replaced. So we are, at this time, on hold with the original SCADA project, pending the addition of this or another project on this. I'm right now. Martin?
Go ahead.
Oh,
My question will probably be about what you're getting ready to say.
I am in the process of writing the RFQ, or the bid spec for this panel, so, for the replacement.
Do you have a schedule
For the,
for putting it out?
I have I have the bid specs, they're in process. They should be out for bid first part of January. Actually need you to review them. So the SCADA system's still kind of on hold for a moment.
Is the vendor holding the price?
Yes. Nothing's changed on the original. Maxwell Hill was washed out, drained, washed out, valves were changed. We haven't received the inspection report back on yet, but we passed all samples. Well number 4 also failed to start last month. Contacted Flynn Drilling. Flynn Drilling came in, pulled the well. Upon pulling it, they tested the electric motor. It was bad. And then upon some further inspection, the bearings were bad in the pump itself. So both items of that well were replaced. That well had been in service about 9 or 10 years. And then Dave gave you an update on the water line project.
How long you running the plant now?
About 18 hours a day. Today they'll actually run 24. We had another water main break today. No, that was yesterday. Water leak on Westwood yesterday. We had a water leak on Gage Street today.
Yeah,
It's kind of indicative of what Dave was saying about the cost of not acting quickly on the
Right.
you know, on my report here, you'll see we had 6 main breaks last month. There was actually 7. I didn't get one added to it. There was one on the last day of the month. This month so far, in the past week, we've had 3.
Well, Steve, it's good to see the water loss continues. I know as it keeps getting lower, it keeps getting harder, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
that's a great showing from 2009 to 2014, and just keep it up. That's saving everybody a bunch of money.
Thank you.
Anything else for Steve? All right, thank you. Any reports from the board? Okay, we'll go into the minutes of the regular meeting of November the 13th.
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the minutes of the closed session of November the 13th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes of the special meeting on December the 2nd.
Second.
All in
I have
favor?
one change on that.
Oh, okay.
To come out of closed session, it listed my name, and when it absent, it also listed my name, so I was listed twice on there.
Here and not here.
Yeah, I come and gone, do my time, on the back here. To come out of closed session, what we voted,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So are you person that voted to approve and second, okay with the change?
Change that?
Okay with the change?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All in favor of
aye.
the December 2nd minutes as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. December 2nd closed session minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approval of the treasurer's report for November.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You recall that we talked about a quarterly budget update, so at your first January meeting, Sue will prepare that.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2015-07, a resolution of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, stating intent to apply for a grant from the St. Genevieve County Community Development Fund in the amount not to exceed $6,000 for the St. Genevieve Fire Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we'll go into old business, bill number 3998, second reading.
An ordinance approving a proposal from Van Denner Engineering for the purchase and installation of 2 new AUMA actuators for the sewer plant in an amount not to exceed $12,633.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Codwell?
Yes.
Alderman Couch?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donnie Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 3998 now becomes ordinance 3937.
Thank you. Bill number 3999, second reading.
An ordinance amending Chapter 500, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building Code, Section 500.110 in its entirety.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Donnie Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Couch?
Yes.
Alderwoman Codwell?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 3999 now becomes ordinance 3938.
Thank you. Bill number 4000, second reading.
An ordinance approving a bid proposal from Centennial Emergency Solutions, Arnold, Missouri, for the purchase of 4 turnout gear in an amount not to exceed $7,948.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Beth. Take a roll call, please.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donnie Stupi?
Yes.
Alderman Couch?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderwoman Codwell?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 4000 now becomes ordinance 3939.
Okay. Thank you. New business, bill number 4001, first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the attached proposal and enter into an agreement between the City of St. Genevieve and Information Technologies Incorporated, ITI, a Missouri corporation, in an amount not to exceed $9,924.
Second.
Bonnie. All in favor of the first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Bill number 4002, first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of St. Genevieve and the St. Genevieve Community Access Television Board, Channel 990, 991.
Second.
This is basically the same as last year's.
It is the same.
Same as last year.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? There's some from the board here, if anybody had any questions. Nope, okay. All in favor, first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Public comments, anyone? Sir, Mr. Brown.
Hello, my name's Bob Brownie, and I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, Judge Martinez threw out my case. Immediately, the district attorney appealed it. Okay, now keep this in mind. The kid who got me arrested, when he is getting sentenced by Judge Martinez for spitting in my face, assaulting me, stalking me, the porch light went on. And Lieutenant Crump was there, so you can ask him, he'll tell you the same thing. She goes, "Are you making this story up on Mr. Brownie in retaliation of him getting a restraining order on your friend?" She says, "Because if you are," she says, "you tell me right now." And he was in shackles, and he goes, And Lieutenant Crump told me, "He's gonna come clean." He goes, "No." So the kid's locked up now. Well, now keep in mind, when he was getting sentenced, she asked him, "I want to know about this knife." That kid, the fourth version, Lieutenant Crump's right there. And she goes, "Did Mr. Brownie ever threaten you with the knife?" "Mm-mm." Did he threaten you? "Mm-mm." Knowing all this, she did the right thing. Why is this DA still coming after me? He's already said, "Oh, I'm gonna drop the knife charge eventually." But he's appealing it, costing me thousands of dollars again more. All of you more, taxpayers more, where these police officers are getting paid $12 an hour. Why doesn't that money go give them a raise that, they're risking their lives, and the DA's using the money up on something on me? I've been in the hospital, I've had a stroke. This is killing me. My daughter has left because she's been harassed. My girlfriend, as soon as it's all over, she's moving. And it's not stopped. I'm now being harassed by an adult friend of theirs, which he was just arrested, 2 Fridays ago, that guy? Threatened to kill me and stick my walking stick up my you-know-what. So I think the district attorney needs to be questioned here. Why, I know it's not your job, but.
Nothing to do with this,
But
Bob.
I know, but I think you can go to them and say, hey, you know, why are you doing this? It is ridiculous, wasting money, knowing, I never pulled a knife on this kid. I never threatened the kid. The kid's even told the judge, huh, he didn't threaten me. That's how the chief got the warrant to come to my house, because I threatened to kill the kid, and I supposed to pull a knife on him.
Bob, I guess as Tom said, I appreciate what you're saying.
And all I'm
Can't
saying,
appreciate what you're going through.
and it's like, I think it's time that, maybe somebody can go to district attorney's office and say, hey, look, you know, what's the point behind this? What is it? I mean, to me right now, and even my attorney said, I now agree with you, Bob, this is a malicious prosecution. He goes, they know you didn't do it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We have under other business, we have a review of a special use permit for Tracy McDonald for the sale of firearms. This is a special use permit. We are trying to stay up to date. This was supposed to be reviewed. We're a little behind on the review, but we are trying to keep up with special use permits that need to be reviewed. So Tracy is here if anybody happens to have any questions. I don't believe that we've had any issues or complaints as far as the special use permit, and was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I got a call from another member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they were concerned that this isn't going before them first when they're the ones that set the stipulation of the review process on there. Because at that meeting of Planning and Zoning, we did have a lot of the neighbors up there come address us as far as their concerns. And I don't have a problem with your business or anything, and I don't have a problem with this special use permit personally, but why it wasn't gone back to Planning and Zoning and
Then
given.
wouldn't the stipulation be to be reviewed every 6 months by planning and zoning?
That's
Because
what
the
it was-
stipulation is by the
That's what
Board
it
of
was
Aldermen.
supposed to have been at the time, and they're wondering why it's coming before us, before Planning and Zoning again.
What do you see the difference would be? What action would planning and zoning take to that?
I'm
What action would
assuming
they take?
to give the people that came before us before
Who
a
would
chance to.
perform that function on planning and zoning?
I'm just bringing up what was brought
I
up.
I understand, but I'm going to get the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
It would be Petrie who would do it for our board as well. I don't care either way, but it seems like we're just, after the initial approval by planning and zoning, try to not be redundant in the future.
I think technically, there are statutes that relate to notification for planning and zoning review of special use permits, and they require that you notify property owners within 185 feet of the property so that they have the opportunity to come and be heard about their concerns. Planning and zoning hears that testimony, as they did, and makes recommendations to the Board of Aldermen as to what action to take that reflects the request of the applicant and the comments of the citizens. Then at the Board of Aldermen meeting, the citizens have another opportunity to express themselves, and they generally do, and reiterate any concerns that they have. But the ultimate decision to approve the special use permit and apply the conditions is the Board of Aldermen. And rightly, we should periodically review all special use permits to ensure that any conditions that were placed on it are being followed. But the conditions are placed by the Board of Aldermen. And we're reporting whether those conditions are being adhered to. And in this case, they are, because were they not, the phone would have rung.
Right. Okay, I'll relay that to them then.
When this was issued, wasn't there some You were waiting for some licensing from the state or something to
Yeah.
actually get started on your business?
Correct, and I received everything from the state and from city, from county, and from the ATF also.
Okay, so it's been 2.5 years, so how's everything going? I mean,
How's everything
is the business doing good, or is,
It's been really, really slow. What started off for me, I jumped in at the wrong time as a business, became the issue of being able to get firearms. I mean, if you're a big store and already had a great stock, you did really well. Just starting out, I didn't have nothing to build on at that time. Then became the ammunition shortage and prices on ammunition going up. From that point, I really just have not.
so you see on pursuing this as a business? from
Yeah, I
now
still-
on? So you're still in one approval and?
Correct, yes, I still am.
Continue on?
Yes, I'm still going to maintain all my licenses, the ATF licenses.
Big effort to go through all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stick with it, yeah.
Yeah.
and we haven't had any complaints?
So what
Do
action
we have to
need
vote on this,
take?
or is this
For
just
You-
review?
Your action would be, should we have evidence to support a rescission, you could rescind his special use permit, but he would have to violate some of whatever terms and conditions we placed upon him. There'd have to be an evidentiary hearing, and
Sweet.
you would make a
We
decision
really
based on
don't
it.
have to do anything.
Nope.
Nope, okay.
Very good.
Good luck.
Thanks for showing up.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
We would like to go into a short closed session to talk about real estate.
Move
Please, go ahead.
move to go into closed session to discuss real estate.
Second.
Alderman Caldwell.
Yes.
Alderman Couch.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Johnny Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yeah.
Motion carries.